Let's talk Halloween Ends spoilers. How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and this is the channel where I get to talk about all my favorite horror movies. And today we're going to talk major spoilers for Halloween Ends. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, definitely go watch my spoiler-free review because I give a pretty good rundown of everything I think about the movie without spoiling major parts of it. So the movie's been out for around 24 hours now. I've seen it 3 times, and this is a weird one because my thoughts on this movie are basically the same, right? Like, I came out of it and I was kind of just like sitting there thinking about it a lot. Like, I don't know, I should really not like this movie just based on how little Michael Myers there is in it, how much it changes from even Halloween 2018, but it's totally different from Halloween Kills. But the more I thought about it, the more I liked it and appreciated what the story was trying to do. And that's definitely more in line, but not totally the same on how I felt with Halloween 2018, where that movie, I loved it from go. I was like, this movie is awesome, and it sustained that awesome feeling I had throughout the entire thing all the way up to the end credits. Like, it's 2 hours long, does not feel like 2 hours at all. It completely flies by. Halloween Kills, on the other hand, just came off so messy to me the first time I saw it that it was hard for me to like deal with the tonal whiplash of the story trying to be super heavy, but it was also at the same time trying to be almost like an action slasher movie. And then every time I watch it, I appreciate it more, and it's moved farther and farther up my list of favorite Halloween movies. This one is technically like totally sound to me, right? Like, the story they want to tell, I feel it coming right through the script, the acting, the way it's portrayed on screen, just everything about this movie is very clearly trying to say one specific thing and doing it a lot better than Halloween Kills did. But I also just don't like some parts of it, even though they're portrayed well. And like, as a critic, I struggle to even call myself a critic because at the end of the day, I'm just a huge horror fan. So I can really look past a lot of issues with movies, which again is why I love so many of the Halloween movies. Yeah, they all have issues, but at the end of the day, I'm there to feel something and have a ton of fun watching a scary movie. And if a movie achieves that, then I'm happy. And this definitely achieved that. So yeah, while it definitely seems like I'm falling out of line with other YouTubers, I'm totally fine with that, and I genuinely don't really care. These reviews aren't marketing. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. Of course, I would like it if this movie made a ton of money at the box office, just because that means more Halloween movies will happen sooner rather than later, and we won't have another decade wait like we had between Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and Halloween 2018. But at the end of the day, I'm just happy to get a new Halloween movie, and I'm happy to talk to you about it. So if you disagree with me, that's totally fine, and as you'll see down in the comments, I love talking about this stuff. Before I jump too deep into the review, I wanted to let you guys know that Cortland and I saw your Discord messages, we saw your YouTube comments, we saw your Instagram DMs asking for more Happy Halloween, and all I'm going to say is we listened. We made another fan film. It will be up this weekend, so if you want to see it, make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications set to all. So yeah, there's a ton to get into here, and I really want to start with the story. The driving theme of this entire movie that's established right at the beginning is that even though Michael Myers has disappeared for 4 years since the events of Halloween 2018, he is still ever present in the town of Haddonfield. He is still their boogeyman and their scapegoat, and they're using him as an excuse to like do evil things. We see this in the montage. We see that in the monologue Laurie has, which is like the aftermath of Halloween night 2019. There's people hung, there's people shot. We even hear Hawkins say, no, Michael Myers doesn't use guns when he's asked by another police officer if he thinks Michael is back. And even though he knows it's probably not Michael, there's that little bit of fear in his eyes where he's like, yeah, I didn't see this guy die, so he's probably still out there. And then the other theme of this movie is how someone good can be corrupted and become evil, which is obviously the Corey plotline. And I love that because, again, Christine is one of my favorite John Carpenter movies. I watch it every year. I think it's extremely underrated, and I think it's really cool to watch this descent of someone who's really down on their luck and has horrible things happen to them to the point where they basically just go full evil mode and start killing people. And I'm not gonna lie, it is weird to introduce a new main character in the third movie in a trilogy, but that cold open intro where we're introduced to Corey and we see him as this good-natured person who really just makes a genuinely terrible mistake and is punished for it for the rest of his life since he does die in this movie, I think it establishes him perfectly perfectly, and it really just immediately helped me buy into his character. Like if it started with Laurie's monologue and we didn't see that intro and we just had this character show up and become friends with Allison after Laurie kind of comes to his rescue at the gas station, that would feel extremely weird. But you can tell they knew what they were doing with that intro because they really wanted to establish this person as a character we should care about who's going to tie Michael Myers back into Laurie Strode and Allison. And sticking with Allison, I don't think her character has really changed all that much. I think she's just finally become a character. And because even though we had a 1-year gap in reality between Halloween Kills and Ends, it seems like she's totally different. There was a 4-year gap between Halloween Night 2018 and Halloween Night 2022. She was a senior in high school in that movie. All of her friends died, her parents died, and it's been 4 years and she's become a nurse. She's like an adult now. And yeah, people change over the course of college when they become an adult, which I think is exactly what happened to her here. And I don't really feel like it's a different person on the screen. I just feel like this is Allison having grown up. And then with Laurie, her evolution is also great here. I love that she's a mix of that 2018 Doomsday Prepper Laurie and the 1978 Laurie. She's obviously trying to move on, but at the split second where anything goes wrong, like the pie burning in the oven, we see the Laurie from 2018 come out where she's like, oh, she's like freaking out because she wants to get everything right and be better than she was in 2018. But that's the person she is, and she's kind of grappling against that. So I really like the advancement of both Laurie and Allison's character here. And then throwing in Corey, I think all three of these characters fit super well together because even though the circumstances are a little bit different for all of them, they're all victims, right? Like they're all looked at as pariahs by the town of Haddonfield, and it's not their fault. All of these people had something terrible happen to them that they couldn't do anything about, and now they're the ones suffering the consequences, which is crazy, and you can see why these people are kind of unraveling at the seams. And then the fourth major character in this movie is obviously Haddonfield. Look, we've seen it expand more and more since 2018. It felt very small in 2018. Laurie lived on the outskirts of town, and then in Halloween Kills, they went all over town. We saw the hospital, we saw the Myers house, we saw the Myers house in 1978, we saw the radio tower, we saw Mick's bar. It was really cool, but they all just felt like locations that weren't really connected in that movie. And in this one, you see people moving throughout Haddonfield, and it actually feels like a small Midwestern town that's lived in, and people are actually walking around and doing things and not just feeling like set dressing on Halloween the Ride, which was one of my biggest criticisms of Halloween Kills. The fifth character in this movie, and I'm not calling them a major character on purpose because they're not really all that major to the plot, is Michael Myers. You know, the reason so many of us are turning up to see this movie, and obviously the reason why this movie is going to be so divisive. Like, that's the big hurdle to get over, is how little Michael Myers is in this movie, and when the killing does happen, a lot of the time it's not actually Michael doing it. It's someone underneath his mask doing the killing for him. Well, not necessarily for him. They're doing the killing to try and be like him. And if you can't get past that, I can definitely see why you wouldn't like this movie. And that's not exactly an easy hurdle to get over, right? Like, if this was the first movie or the second movie in the trilogy, it would make sense to introduce a character like Corey, but doing it in the third movie is a ballsy move. And for me, for the most part, it definitely paid off, but it's still a risk I think I would have liked them to take earlier on in the franchise so that we have more time in the actual third movie with Michael Myers. But I also think this movie could have been changed to include at least a few more Michael scenes. I'm going to talk about that later in the video, but yeah, it's not weird to have a Halloween movie without Michael Myers and have it be good, because we've had that before with Halloween 3. What's weird is to have a Halloween movie that has Michael Myers in it where he doesn't feel like a major main character in the story. He's more of a side character who's tying everyone together, which, yeah, in Halloween Kills, he was the main character of that movie. We got an entire 2-hour movie where it's just endless slaughter by Michael Myers, and it's incredibly gory, bloody, gratuitous, practical effects everywhere. Like, I love all the killing in that movie. Like so many trilogies, you look at the middle movie and you're like, why did they make that? With this one, it's immediately clear to me why they made that middle movie featuring so much Michael Myers, because the plan was always to do a third movie that didn't feature Michael Myers as heavily and would really show that Haddonfield itself is a true villain in this franchise as well. And that's really been the theme of this entire trilogy, that Michael Myers is not the cause of the evil, he's just a product of it, and that Haddonfield itself is a character that generates evil, and the way people behave there, where they need a scapegoat, something to fear, something they can blame, instead of looking inward and seeing that they're part of the problem, is what created Michael Myers. And that is more clear in this movie than the other two, which I think is also why it's coming as a shock to quite a few people. But one of the reasons I think that message and that theme works better in in this movie than Halloween Kills is because the pacing is more in line with Halloween 2018. Like, this story moves at a fast clip. Whenever you're nodding out, there's a loud noise to suck you right back in, and Carpenter's score is the best one of the entire trilogy. I went and I listened to all three back to back to back. Halloween 2018 soundtrack I think is really, really good, if not a little inconsistent. It does have the best track in this entire trilogy, which is obviously The Shape Hunts Allison, but there's also quite a few tracks that you would kind of skip if you were listening to the soundtrack. Halloween Kills is also pretty good. It's tonally consistent across the entire thing. It feels like a Halloween soundtrack. It's not doing anything too crazy, and it just builds on the Halloween 2018 soundtrack. This one is totally different. It's got an industrial feel to it. Instead of synths, there's pianos. There's new twists and flares on the Halloween theme that make it feel a little bit more meaner and have a little bit more finality to it. I just really love this soundtrack, and this is one where I'm like, yes, I'm so glad I bought it on vinyl before I actually heard it, because this is going to be a mainstay at Halloween parties and just in my house throughout October. It's like great background music for a Halloween season, and I think that's what really makes it the best, and it undercuts so many of the scenes in this movie perfectly. Like, it's really ruthless how well the soundtrack is edited into this movie. I think they did an incredible job there. Throughout this movie, I'd say my excitement was pretty constant. It was at a high for most of it, and then towards the end of the movie, it obviously ratchets up when Michael shows back up for the final showdown, because that was one of the best scenes in the Halloween franchise, in my opinion. The only scene that really started to dip for me was when Corey and Allison are eating in the restaurant and Doug confronts them. It just felt kind of unnecessary to the overall plot, and I feel like Corey was overacting a little bit. I don't know, it just didn't really land for me. That and the line where he's like, if I can't have her, no one will. I just thought that was like a little bit much, but those are really my only two gripes with the actual dialogue and writing, which again, I've mentioned so many times, are massively improved over both Halloween Kills in 2018. But my attention started to dip there. I was like, come on, stuff really needs to pop off. And then right after that scene, stuff really pops off. I'm assuming that scene was probably a little bit longer, and during test screenings or like other viewings in the actual studio or booth or whatever, they probably realized that it was dragging there a bit, because that's really when things start to pop off. Corey leaves the restaurant, Doug tails him, they go under the bridge, and this is when Michael finally starts to regain some strength. I like this scene a lot. I love the lighting in that cave. I've seen some behind the scenes pictures, and Michael's mask is actually indented in the stonework around that little sewer cave that he's living in. I love that shot of him hiding in the background where he barely stands out and you kind of have to look to see him. And real quick, I gotta step back and talk about the scene where Corey finds this cave and he crawls in there and meets Michael. I love the way Michael is using all of his strength to choke him and showing us that he's weakened by the fact that he can't. And I also really appreciate the fact that in that flash scene where we see all of the terrible things that have happened in Haddonfield, it's all things that have happened to Corey. Like, he's seeing the evil, Michael is not. I think it's that Michael is not strong enough to kill Corey at this point, but Corey is obviously affected by the situation, and looking into the evil of Michael's eyes, it obviously affects him, and that's what kind of pushes him over the edge into becoming a killer in the style of Michael, because he worships him. It's not the other way around. But going back to Doug's kill, I think it's great. I think it's really brutal. I love how when Michael gets started stabbing him, even though he's already dead, he just keeps stabbing him and stabbing him and stabbing him, because it's clearly giving him spirit back. Like, whatever drives Michael, whatever evil that is being regenerated, at least in his mind, by killing Doug. And I think that's why he allows Corey to live. He needs to kill. It feeds him literally, because as this homeless man points out, Michael's been dragging people into the sewer for 4 years and eating them. So he's been healing and eating, but what really regenerates the force that is Michael Myers is killing other people. So he's using Corey as a means to an end, and Corey sees them as more of a team. And since we're talking about the kills, I'm gonna run through them and just give you my thoughts on them. I mean, 1,000 Miles Up, like, as taken on their own, these are all really good kills. I think these are some of the best kills in the Halloween franchise. Even though a lot of them are cutaway, you do get to see a lot of gore for a flash split second, and that made it stick in my mind a lot more than some of the kills in Kills where they just played out in their entirety on screen. Like, letting my imagination fill in the rest of those gaps really worked for me in this movie. So yeah, even Jeremy's death in the intro at the beginning of the movie, I'm counting that as a kill, because that camera shot where it hangs just a few seconds longer than it needs to on him falling down and smashing his neck and all the blood pooling there on the floor of his house, that's brutal, and that's in line with what a Halloween movie is. Like, Halloween itself is the evil in Haddonfield, and that evil caused what happened to happen. Like, that's how I'm seeing it, at least. So I love that kill. The Dr. Mathis kill is the most conflicting one in this movie for me. I get what they were going for, right? Like, Michael followed Corey to this house where there are two people he can kill. I just don't like the way Corey is acting once he's actually discovered, and the other nurse, I forgot her name, the redhead nurse, makes her way into the house and Corey just starts slamming on the door. That, I don't know, that just didn't really work for me, but the rest of the scene I think worked pretty well. I love how when the redhead nurse comes outside before she turns on that motion light, where we see Corey killing Dr. Mathis or stabbing him in the neck over and over again with the wine opener, you can see him in the background. I didn't see this the first or second time I saw it, but the IMAX screen I saw it on last night, you could very faintly see him just stabbing over and over again in the background, which I thought was a really cool touch that was obviously reminiscent of the first Halloween, where every time I watched it growing up, I saw something new in the background. So I feel like that was worth pointing out, worth giving Corey some credit for. I also think it's cool that Michael recreates one of his first kills, right? Like he's going back to that primal stalking state where he really wasn't as experienced as a killer and he was still learning how to become the Halloween night murderer, and going back as he's charging up, I think thematically that worked really well. The issue is Michael doesn't have enough kills or just scenes in general in this movie, so making him have a kill like that where it's a recreation of the first movie, it feels like kind of a waste and just a little bit cheap. Like Christopher Nelson does great gore effects, great makeup effects, and he didn't really have to flex at all here. I'm like 50-50 on it. I think it has some good moments, I think it has some bad. I like the suspense in the house, like it almost feels like a little short film. I don't know if this is controversial or not, but the whole junkyard scene for me is one of the best scenes in the entire movie. I love it from start to finish. It's got that suspense factor where Corey is able to silently, a la Michael in 1978, kill one of the kids, and then they discover him, and that's when it really pops off. It obviously has a callback to Christine with the car revving up and hitting the fence, and I think her name is Margot, getting crushed under the fence. I love her delivery on the line, "You're dead too," because it's like she just gives up and dies. I also thought it was crazy that the nice stepdad who I didn't want to die, like Corey's stepdad, I love that dude. He gave him his motorcycle, he really cared about him, he was just trying to enjoy his movie so he didn't get screamed at home by the worst character in this movie, Corey's mom, and then he suffers the consequences for it, still trying to protect Corey because he believes this kid is good, and he hasn't realized that this kid is an actual murderer. He gets up to stop the gunshot and he suffers the consequences for that action, which is brutal and in line with this trilogy. It just really got to me. And this is where the scene happens where I said if it was in focus, this movie would be NC-17. That's of course the blowtorch kill. The sound design in that scene is what really takes it over the top. I love the 3 levels of the blowtorch being cranked up, and that 3rd level, the sheer heat you're seeing like radiate off of that. I don't know if that was CGI or practical, but it looked practical and it looked hot. Like I did not want to be anywhere near that blowtorch, and I just had no idea that was going straight into the bully's mouth. That was a cathartic kill. I hated that bully. He was too realistic and he bothered me a lot, so I was really happy to see that teen die. But yeah, man, the sound design goes way harder than it has to. It almost sounded like his teeth were overheating and popping for a second, and I was like, whoa, I cannot believe that was in a movie like this, and I can totally tell why it's out of focus, because again, I think if you showed that and did it like realistically like Christopher Nelson would, it would be NC-17 level, or they'd have to save it for the unrated Blu-ray or something like that. Like that even made me go, ugh, that's too much. It's not too much. I loved it. It's just like I was on the line of too much. It freaked me out. I just mentioned that Corey's mom is the worst character in this movie. She's creepy. I don't like looking at her. I don't like the way she talks. The first time I watched this movie, I hated her. The second time I hated her. The third time I hated her even more. I'm glad she died. I wish they kept the extended version of her kill in the movie that we saw in the trailer, where she holds the pillow up and the knife comes through it and stabs her. A character like that is one I genuinely wanted to see die on screen, and I feel like I was a little bit robbed of that. But then we get the radio station, which, like, oh my god, the radio station I don't think could have been done better. Darcy from The Last Drive-In, aka Diana Prince, had a great cameo in this movie. It wasn't like hokey or weird or anything. She fit in perfectly. She said on Twitter that her scene was a little bit longer, but I almost kind of like appreciated the off-screen kill here because of the vocal performance. Like I felt like she was dying off screen and I was able to imagine that, but I'd love to see this in the extended version on the Blu-ray if that does happen. And also seeing that Dick Willie the Kid get his head smashed into the table over and over, like, yeah, that was another cathartic kill for me. Loved it. I love that effect of his tongue hanging out of his mouth and Corey coming in and snipping it off and the blood shooting out and then the tongue going around the turntable of the radio station. Like that was just chef's kiss. If you could get over the fact that it's not Michael Myers, I think you'll love that kill as much as I do. And I just think it was so good that I had no problem getting over the fact that it wasn't Michael Myers. And just going back to the junkyard scene, I got to acknowledge that I was totally wrong in all of my predictions over what shot was Michael and what shot was the copycat killer Corey. I've had this as my iPhone wallpaper, this shot right here, for about a month now, and I'm gonna leave it because it tricked me into thinking it was Michael, and I still love the lighting on it. But yeah, I kind of wish a shot like that was Michael. And the head stomp I thought was really good, really effective. Obviously the Sartain one in Halloween 2018 is better, but this one lets you fill it in with your imagination, and I appreciated that. And with Michael, even though he's not on screen enough, every time he is on screen, I think he was used effectively and shot super well. I liked a lot of the recreated shots from 1978, but like I just said, I have issues with that because there's not enough Michael in this movie. So it almost feels like the vast majority of times we see Michael in this movie are just recreations of stuff that happened in 1978, but done in 2022. I think overall, even compared with the rest of the franchise, the kills in this movie are really good. The issue, again, obviously, is that Michael Myers only performs about 30% of them, and I think that might even be being generous, but the kills are so good, and most importantly, the attention to detail in the rest of this movie is so good that I'm kind of fine with it. And what I mean by attention to detail, it's stuff like setting up things that are going to be used later in the movie, like Laurie just knitting while she talks in one scene and not really calling attention to the knitting needles, or Allison slamming the microwave and microwaving that piece of pumpkin pie and it exploding and then coming into play during the final showdown with Laurie and Michael. And then of course the radio station cuts out after Willie the Kid dies, which is how Allison has the idea to go there. That's the attention to detail that I kind of think was lacking in a lot of the plot, especially in Halloween Kills, so I was glad to see them really punch up the writing in that respect. So yeah, that combined with the kills really just worked for me in this movie when it was teetering on the edge of not working because of the lack of Michael Myers. Now it's time to talk about the final showdown, which I don't think could have been handled any better. That sense of like relief that turns into fear and then turns into going into survival mode that washes over Laurie's face after Corey kills himself and then she realizes Michael Myers is in the house with her. That is perfect. That is Laurie Strode. That feels like the character that evolved from 1978 to 2018 and now 2022. Like Jamie Lee Curtis there, incredible acting chops, and it reminded me why she's still coming back and why people still want her back in these Halloween movies. Like that moment alone really sold this as the true ending of the Laurie Strode saga for me, even though even cooler stuff is about to happen. And of course the suspense of Michael Myers lumbering slowly through Laurie's house with that deep blue color grading that's reminiscent of Halloween 1978, that's what made this final showdown so perfect for me. It felt like a Michael Myers, most importantly, that Laurie is able to take down because he was weakened to the point where he was weaker than her, I think, at the beginning of the movie. Like anyone could have killed Michael Myers. And even to the halfway point when we see Corey grappling with him, he's severely weakened. But as he kills, he gets stronger and stronger, and he's brought to a point where I'd say he has the slight edge over Laurie Strode, but it's believable because of where he's at strength-wise that she could kill him in this movie. It doesn't need to be a trick. She's just able to outwit him, but she takes some damage as well, and I was not sure if she was going to survive that fight. Like, I don't know. I thought she might take a killing blow when Michael was stabbing that knitting needle into the side of her head. Like, that didn't show because there was so much movement, but it looked so brutal to me that I felt that pain she was feeling, and I was like, man, if he goes a little bit farther, he's gonna touch gray matter and she's gonna die. So that was super effective for me. I had no idea who was gonna win this fight. I kind of had a feeling they were gonna give Laurie that out again like they did in H2O and have her be the triumphant winner, but I just had that feeling that Michael Myers could come out on top in this movie because, of course, of that whole thing, which is like a rumored thing that happened after Halloween Resurrection, where apparently you're not allowed to kill Michael Myers on screen, and this movie said, yeah, that is not a thing. We are gonna put Michael Myers through a fucking meat grinder after Laurie Strode literally crucifies him with knives. And this is where I'm really gonna push back on people that say they feel like Michael went out weak in this. I don't see that. He survived till the very last second. Like, he was stabbed in the heart twice, like through the middle of his chest, on top of all the other injuries he's had throughout these other two movies. Then he was stabbed underneath his armpit, which is an easy way to get through someone's lungs to their heart. Then he had his throat slit and he was breathing and willing to fight back up until the point where his wrist was slit and he just completely bled out. Like, this dude was still willing to fight, and he also tore his hand in half after being stabbed in the heart twice and having his throat slit just to get that one more chokehold in on Laurie. And that's where you realize that yes, he did regain his strength because he looks like he's going to kill her, and then Allison literally has to break his arm in half to stop him. Like, that was the strongest Michael Myers, and I feel like that was a fight at the end to make him die. Whereas I don't want to compare the movies, and I definitely will in my ranking, but H2O, cheap ass ending. I don't like that Michael just flies out the window, gets pinned in a tree, and then she cuts his head off. Way too quick, not brutal at all. Laurie obviously has the upper hand in that movie, and in this one, it felt completely evenly matched to me, and that's why I really love this final scene. If this final scene was not executed as well as it was, I think my opinion on the entire movie retroactively would have changed. I don't feel like I would be so in on the idea of Corey being the main character. I don't feel like I would love all the kills as much. I don't feel like I would really love this movie like I've come to in the past few days if that final scene wasn't as good as it is. It delivered for me. It was satisfying. It felt like a good conclusion to this trilogy, and the best part of all this is that if it wasn't for you, you can just go back and watch Halloween 2018 and it's completely standalone. Like, that movie's ending works completely fine. If you want a more ambiguous end for Michael Myers that goes in line with what you've been told by people spreading rumors about Michael Myers not being able to die on screen, that movie is right there for you. I was talking to my friend Tony from Hack the Movies about this. This movie and kills don't ruin anything in the Halloween franchise like people are pretending they do, because A, the other movie is there and has finality, and B, this franchise will never die. If it can come back from a movie like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and Halloween Resurrection, both of which I think are genuinely bad movies and bad entries in the Halloween franchise, to the point where I don't really revisit those movies anymore at all, really. And despite the fact that Michael Myers isn't on screen for a lot of it, he is felt throughout the entire thing, and that's what makes it a Halloween movie to me. So to summarize my thoughts here, while I can definitely see why this movie isn't working for around half the fan base, and it really shouldn't work for me, like the whole time I was watching it, I was like, be annoyed that there's not enough Michael Myers. Everything else is so good that my brain just refused to dislike this movie. The shot work is the best it's been since the original movie. The acting and writing across the board were improved tenfold, and the score is one of the best, if not the best, in the entire franchise from John Carpenter, except for maybe the original score that introduced all these themes. I loved so much of this movie that all of my gripes feel insignificant to the whole. I personally love that all four of the movies in this timeline, Halloween, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends, all feel like distinctly different movies. They're all handled by the same person, but they're all tackling different themes, and they all achieve their goals to some extent, for better and worse. If you want an extended epilogue for 2018 that also allows Myers to get away in the end, having inflicted more brutality on Laurie Strode, you have Halloween Kills. And if you want a really cool, really different franchise ender that's deeply weird and takes a lot of swings, you have Halloween Ends. And of course, the original is always going to be immortal, and it's going to inspire more sequels down the line. So yeah, that's my spoiler review of Halloween Ends. If you have watched any videos on my channel over the past 4 years, whether it's a news update, a review, a spoiler review, a ranking, whatever it is, a fan film, I cannot thank you enough. This channel has given me so many opportunities in my life, both professionally and just meeting friends. Like, without this channel, I wouldn't have met one of my best friends, Cortland. I probably wouldn't have the amazing job I have today, and I definitely wouldn't have met so many amazing people like I have over the years at places like Midsummer Scream, Salem Horror Fest, early screenings, Telluride Horror Fest. And last night, we're at the theater, a fan came up to me and said that they didn't recognize me at first because of how much weight I lost. I really appreciated that. I'm pretty sure your name was Darren. I just couldn't totally hear you. Either way, that made my week. Real talk, getting to meet and talk to so many amazing people who love Halloween because of this trilogy and this amazing franchise means that, as imperfect as it is, I'm gonna love it for the rest of my life. So yeah, all you people in the comments who say I'm a biased critic, it's like, where have you been? Of course I'm a biased critic. I fucking love Halloween. Anyway guys, I think that about wraps it up. Thank you so much for watching. I of course still have my ranking to do that includes Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends, and I'm excited for that. And as always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Shape on and happy Halloween.